Welcome to this week's edition of Coach Prep. Coach Don and I are here in the Cherokee Batting Range podcast studio getting ready to record episode number 128. We're going to talk about the fine line between aggressive and foolish and what that means for us coaches as we're trying to manage it. But before we get into that topic, let's talk about our sponsors. First, the Anderson Bat Company. Everything Fast Pitch is very proud to have Anderson Bat Company as our presenting sponsor. Anderson Bat Company is using the latest and greatest bat technology to corner the market in the fast pitch world. They have the -9 Rocket Tech, the -10 Carbon, and the -11 Carbon Light. Anderson Bat Company is using this technology to put a high-performing bat in the hands of hitters that really know the difference between a good bat and a great bat. We're also working with Anderson to provide a discount for all of our listeners. Go to the Anderson Bat Company website and order your bats. Use the EFP20 discount, which is for everything fast pitch, and you'll get a 20% discount. It's a great way for you to save a little bit of money on a great bat and also help support everything fast pitch at the same time. And Patreon.com, if you're in a position where you can, please come on board as a patron. We've got a great group of patrons that have been supporting us for a long time. They are the people that have kept everything fast pitch and Coach Prep alive. If you're in a position where you can, if you see value in what we're doing, go to patreon.com/everythingfastpitch. The 3 different levels of monthly support will be explained to you there, and we would certainly love for you to come on board and become a patron if you're in a position where you can do so. All right, Don, so everybody knows I think aggressive is good.
Sure.
And I've always had that attitude because I think aggressive play, aggressive hitting, aggressive effort on defense leads to great things happening more often than a less aggressive attitude would.
Right.
So the challenge is for us as coaches is if we're going to buy into the aggressive is good mindset, if we're going to really sell that to our players, then we have to buy in and really understand that that means some things as we get going, as we get working with our kids. Obviously, if we want them to be free swingers and go up to the plate, aggressively looking to hit, if they swing at a lot of first pitches, they're going to hit some bombs, but they're going to have some pop-ups.
Sure.
If we tell our outfielders to aggressively go after every single ball in the outfield, lay out and dive for everything, that you have any chance at all at catching, that we're going to have some ESPN top 10 play of the day kinds of diving catches, and we're going to have some balls that go through to the gap. And the challenge for us as coaches, is the risk worth it versus the reward? And are we okay with the consequences of allowing our players and instilling in our players this super aggressive mindset?
No, I think there's a few things that come into play here, Tori, and the time of year that we're focusing on this for us now is the beginning of the season, and this is really when we want to instill that mindset of being aggressive, and we need to find out what our limitations are, what we're capable of, and whether it's hitting a borderline pitch or whether it's making that ESPN play in the field. We need to use this time as the time to establish, what we're capable of. And when we're doing this, we are going to swing at some balls that are in the dirt too.
Right.
Right. We're going to get fooled because we're so aggressive. And if our players are worried about what the coaches are going to think, the parents are going to be upset. If they're worried about those type of things, they're going to be a lot more reserved and they're going to be a lot less likely to really cut loose and be that aggressive player that we're talking about wanting them to be. So it works both ways. And
right.
If we can applaud aggression and let them find comfort in knowing that being aggressive this time of year is really all that we're asking of them, and know that they're going to be able to refine their pitch selection, and they're going to be able to refine that and identify pitches that are bad early enough in a pitch to lay off down the road, then we're really growing and we're learning how to hit borderline pitches that when we have 2 strikes later in the season, we need to have some reps at hitting that, that pitch that's barely a strike and that pitch that's, going to be called by that tough umpire, going to be calling us out. But if we've only been looking for the juicy one that we're confident of, our success early in the season, we're not getting very well versed at that borderline pitch if we're talking about hitting. But
right. Well, and I think aggressive is certainly something that I've always preached. But I have to admit that there are times when it's very challenging because that aggressiveness is going to also lead to some big mistakes.
Sure.
Right? Or some big not necessarily mistake might not even be the right word.
Some disappointment.
Some big efforts that come up short. Some aggressive plays that look, I guess, foolish or look foolhardy in hindsight because we didn't make that play. But I tell this story all the time. There's a girl that played for me. Her name was Noelle Winkles. And Noelle was, I think, 12 years old the first time I saw her. And she was playing in one of these little showcase things where they, kind of the kids sign up and they, tie you in with a group of kids and you sort of play scrimmage games all day long at camp. She was younger than most of the other kids that were there, and she was out in right field. And there was a ball that got hit out into foul territory and like in the right field corner. And she went like as hard and as fast as she could. She dove, she laid out, and she came up probably 15 feet short of the ball.
It was obvious that she wasn't.
And everybody was laughing at her. The kids were making fun of her, and parents and everybody were kind of like giggling. Well, a little bit later on that day, it's kind of the exact same situation. She did the exact same thing, and she came up about 5 feet short. Well, long story short, the third one of the day, she made one of those ESPN top 10 play of the day kinds of catches.
Like, how did she get there, right?
And to me, the whole reason that she made the third play was because she was okay with being super aggressive and looking a little foolish or looking a little bit funny or whatever it was on the first one. In her mind, they all were the same. She went after it with everything she had, gave it everything she could, laid out and went all out for the ball. And, she expected to, I think in her mind, she expected to catch the first one just as much as she expected to catch the third one. And so her aggressiveness was something that I really noticed and I really applauded. So she ended up being a player that, as she got older and more physically developed and stuff like that, those kinds of plays were something that she made all the time.
You could appreciate that effort, yeah.
But I think that because that aggressiveness was instilled in her at a young age, the fact that it was okay to go all out and not catch the ball, that was just, the price she paid for going all out was, normal to her. So she became good at making amazing plays because she thought she could make amazing plays. And the aggressiveness that she played with was part of the reason for that. So to me, I think that's the moral to the story about why I think aggressive is so good. We've all seen hitters who are super aggressive at the plate, who swing at a pitch that's a little bit out of the strike zone or a little bit outside or a little bit whatever, and they just mash the ball. Well, I think that if you take a really good aggressive swing, chances are something good could happen. I think if you're always timid, if you're always so worried about looking bad or swinging badly or swinging and missing, if we're always holding back, I think that we're always going to limit what we're capable of. And so aggressive is good. But now at some point in time, there is a line between aggressive and foolish. And I think that's one of those things that's always part of this whole learning curve and something for us as coaches that we have to always be paying attention to. So here's my line. What's the line between aggressive and foolish? There is none. I want you going all out for every single ball. I want you swinging out of your shoes. I want you trying to hit the ball and busting it into little pieces every time. But that's my attitude. And I've gotten to the point now where a kid who plays that way, who dives for a ball in the 7th inning and the winning run scores from first because she thought she was going to make that ESPN top 10 play of the game that would have ended the game. And instead, because it got by her and ended up costing us the game or tying the game, I'm okay with that. Now, that's my attitude about it. Whether other coaches have the same attitude, that's for them to decide. So for that same situation, that outfielder, some other coach would be like, well, you got to play it safe. You got to keep that ball in front of you. You got to make him get another hit to beat us. And there's nothing wrong with that strategy too. But for that coach, the line between aggressive and foolish is way closer to conservative than my line would be.
No, I think that's super fair. And, if you're going to win with amazing, you might lose with some amazing, right? And I think just what you said is exactly right. As coaches, we need to know where that line is. And if we're trying to catch up late in a game, we might have a little different philosophy on how aggressive we want to be on the bases or how aggressive we're going to be on blocking a ball up in the outfield or diving for it. I think what you're saying, that's easy. If it's all out every day, every pitch, every time, that is what it is.
Right.
And that's either going to win for us or it's going to lose for us.
Right.
But for the coaches that are going to draw some type of a line, they have to help teach or groom their team to kind of abide by that, right?
And that's the point. Everybody needs to know what that
Be
line
on that
is.
same page.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I can't be the coach that preaches, nonstop, go for everything, go for everything. I believe in you. You're a great player. I want you to dive for everything because I think you're going to catch every single ball.
And then
freak out in the seventh inning when she dives for a ball that goes to the wall and ends up being the tying run or the winning run.
Didn't you know we were down 1 run?
Right.
Yeah.
I can't be the coach that cheers when she swings at a pitch that's 6 inches out of the strike zone and hits a 240-foot bomb, and then be mad later on when she strikes out on a pitch that's 7 inches out of the strike zone,
coming out of her shoes,
taking the exact same swing that was the 240-foot bomb earlier that now was a miss of the changeup or whatever it is. I know for all of us as coaches, we've got to set the standard, set the line, and whatever it is for you, whatever you're comfortable with is fine. Because if what is foolish is going to depend on your attitude as a coach. There's no magic thing that says every time you do this, it's foolish. It's foolish for that coach, for that team, for their philosophy. So if you have somebody else that's always like, my outfielders never dive. They play every ball safe. They're going to keep everything in front of them. We never give up an extra base. There's nothing wrong with that if that's your attitude. But then we can't be surprised if there's one of those sort of 60-40, 70-30 balls that, could have been, might have been, should have been caught that got played safely.
Right.
We took a deeper angle to make sure we kept it in front of us instead of a more aggressive angle that might have given us a chance to catch it. It's up to each coach to decide what's your line, what's your strategy, what's your philosophy, and then teach it, live it, and stick to it. And that's, to me, I think one of the hardest things. And honestly, I would share it with your parents. I would share it with your fans. I would share it with, make sure that everybody on the team is bought into the same philosophy. You definitely don't want, half the parents mad because Sally dove for a ball in the outfield, didn't catch it, even though the same parents were cheering for her 2 weeks ago when she won a game for us by going for the exact same kind of ball.
Right. No, and I think that's an important point, Tori, is that everybody's on the same page. So they're not second guessing and talking about how it should be different and things like that. We can talk about it and communicating to the kids what is important at that moment. Hey, we got a 3-run lead. We're going to keep the ball in front in the 7th inning.
Right.
Or, because we could get ourselves in trouble maybe.
Right.
If they're unsure, they're halfway in between what they're doing, defensively or at the plate. If we're down a run, we often would say, hey, we're going to take a strike. We're going to let the pitcher get herself in trouble. Or if she falls behind in the count, then maybe we're going to get something a little more juicy that we can hit. But to have that philosophy and for them to be very confident in whatever approach we're taking, I think is a much stronger approach.
Right. And the one thing that you touched on that I think is really important is whatever our philosophy is, we have to live it. We have to teach it. We have to really work on it enough that everybody understands what's going on. And you can have a little bit of a mixture. You can have a little bit of both.
Yeah.
If you have enough chances to practice all those situations. And so it's okay to have I'm going to come out of my shoes on every swing approach at the plate, but then also have we're ahead by 3 runs in the 7th inning with 2 outs. We're not going to throw the ball home on a base hit kind of mentality or whatever it is. We're not going to try for the lead runner in a sketchy situation, late in the game with a big lead. You can have outs. Yeah, you can have both of those. Now, the only thing I will say is I do think it's hard for some players to turn on and off the same switch.
Sure.
So that player who you're always applauding for, going.
They have to be conscious of the situation.
That they're going all out to catch a ball and dive for it in one situation. If that's not okay in another situation, sometimes I think that's asking a little bit from some of those players.
Sure.
But again, it's up to you as the person in charge to set the standard, create the line, and then make sure that once you've done that, then that you're doing what you have to support it. It's going to mean that there's going to be a time where you're going to have a hitter swing at a rise ball that the catcher can barely catch, or you're going to have a hitter swing at a changeup that bounced 3 feet in front of home plate and looked really bad on it. But to me, the flip side of the big hits and the big plays and the exciting, amazing plays that Aggressive has led to in my experience, I'll take the trade-off.
Yeah, no, I think that's super exciting. And, I'm also thinking, hey, the game's tied. We're on defense. The home team's up. And, the ball lands. We lose. We catch it. we get to play on.
Right.
We get the next inning. So, and if they've never ever done it,
right,
because we're always playing it safe,
you just hit the nail on the head that I think is
we have to be able to do it too.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if we've always preached, we never leave our feet, the ball never touches the ground, and then it's the bottom of the last inning, and that winning runs at third base, and there's that little blooper hit out into no man's land, and everybody stays
Just
on their
checks
feet
up. Yeah.
and checks up to make sure that we keep it safe.
Because that's what our habit is.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's always part of the trade-off. And so, coaches, is there a line between aggressive and foolish? Yes, I think there is, but it's up to you to decide what that line is. You can put it wherever you want to. You can be
communicate it, teach it,
and once you've done it, then you got to live with it. And don't be that coach that preaches aggressiveness and then gets mad if aggressiveness bites you in the butt. Don't be that coach that preaches conservative, safe, and then mad that they don't know how to turn it up and be aggressive when aggressive might have worked too.
And let's use this early part of the season to understand what what we're capable of.
Yeah,
let them check it out.
Yeah, and especially in certain situations, practice situations, meaningless scrimmage games,
Friendlies,
situations at practice. To me, that's really a great time to test the boundaries because you might find yourself being a whole lot more comfortable with aggressive if you just played around with it a little bit more.
No doubt.
So, all right, so that's going to wrap up number 128. Please make sure you check out Anderson Bat and patreon.com/everythingfastpitch. If you have questions, suggestions, or ideas, please reach out to us at everythingfastpitch@gmail.com or fastpitchprep@gmail.com. For Coach Don McKinley and our producer Stan Lewis, this is Coach Torrey saying thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you again next week.